Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Mining Investment Event of the North is brought to you by EMX Royalty Corp.
Too little focus on exploration means many of the biggest miners will be turning to companies like Maple Gold. My next guest is Matthew Hornor, CEO of Maple Gold Mines. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So when you last spoke to Kitco Mining, it was actually right here at this conference a year ago.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing what's changed in the last year. But first, can you give us a bit of a thumbnail of Maple Gold Mines?
Sure, happy to. Maple Gold Mines is one of the largest undeveloped resource packages in the Abitibi Greenstone Belt located in Quebec, Canada. We have a 400 square kilometer land package, 3 projects, 2 of which are in a joint venture with Agnico Eagle.
Right. So that's very interesting because obviously these are very large projects, and you've got a very large partner with you on it. So that's I guess that's where the industry is going to have to be going in the near term potentially. So what are some of the key milestones that you've hit in the last 12 months since we spoke to you?
Well, we embarked on quite an aggressive drilling campaign over the last 12 months. We started with our 100% owned project called Eagle, actually named after which was the namesake of Agnico Eagle. They operated that project up until 1993. So we embarked on our solo drilling campaign there, 7,500 meters of drilling. We put out some quite compelling results earlier this year in January at the completion of that project. And then started at doing some deeper drilling at Telbel and Douay, our 2 other projects that are under our joint venture partnership with Agnico. So we, in total, have about north of 20,000 meters total across all projects. We've put out results for Eagle, Telbel, and there's some upcoming results from Douay as well, some deeper drilling, really to test the plumbing, the deeper structures, if you will, that underpin the 3 million ounces we have fairly near the surface.
All right. So you're doing plenty of exploration. You have a major partner for it. In your presentation, you mentioned that gold companies aren't. Most gold companies are not investing a lot in exploration, even though we're in an environment where demand is increasing, prices are up. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a lot of the junior exploration companies are, at the moment, because the market is not rewarding the effort, they're electing to not put do a lot of work in drilling, just because the funds aren't available to support the initiatives. The larger larger producing gold mine or portfolio companies, I think, always have to maintain a certain exploration budget so they can point to the ounces down the road that they're going to be producing. So if you're in a position where you have a partner that's helping you pay for some of the drilling, it continues. If you're one of the companies that doesn't have that kind of backing, it makes sense to me as a CEO of the company where they would want to pull back on the reins a little bit and slow things down until the market kind of catches up.
Right, and until that type of activity is being rewarded or the money's coming into the company for it.
That's right. Like I don't have a choice, and I don't mind that. I mean, I think even when times are difficult, that's when putting the work in, putting the effort into actually doing the drilling to come out with some results. Ultimately, we'll be rewarded. When? Who knows? I think back till 3 years ago, when the pandemic was about to start, and we were down to a few $1 million in the treasury, and there were voices everywhere saying, "Batten down the hatches, run for the hills, do nothing," and we were just in the middle of a drilling campaign. And I thought to myself, in the past history in the world, pandemics have usually led to a spike in gold prices, and I'd like to be in a position after that happens to put out some results that are interesting. This is back to 2020 summer. And that's exactly what transpired. Gold, as we all remember, took off. I had 3 different competing offers to deals with me on the company. We elected the best partner on the planet, Agnico Eagle. But it's all because we said, okay, we can only control what we can control. We can't control what the market does. The prices of gold we can't control. What we can't control is what we do on the ground at the project. And hopefully that ends up driving value going forward, and so far it has.
Right, so you're rewarded for kind of staying the course, and
it's not always easy.
Yeah.
There is a certain deal of stress that comes with that, for sure. But it's not always easy to have perseverance and think about the end game. You have varying voices in the world. If the stock market is not going your way, a lot of pressures. But they pay us to do the work and advance the project. And that's what we're in this position to do. We're fiduciaries of our shareholders for that reason, and so that's what we're here for. So sometimes it's more difficult than others, but that's the objective of the company itself. So.
Now, more recently, post-pandemic, we're now facing forest fires in this region, in Quebec, and you're operating there. What impact have you seen from these fires on the sector and on your operations as well?
Well, we invited into our camp about 30 of the support and firefighters to help. It's a great staging area given where it's located between Amos and Montagami, and we have a 45-person camp that's already built and established. We own. So the impact that's out there is we're happy to help as corporate citizens in the effort to fight the fires, to house the firefighters. At this moment, we've completed our drilling for the phase 1 of the deeper efforts at Douay and Telbel. So we're in a waiting period for some of the assays, and then there's going to be a great deal of thinking time between now and the time we kick off phase 2 to see what we've actually come across and how we're going to take the next phase. So from that perspective, it's not been a direct impact to us. The personnel we have on site has come down by a few headcount, just so they can do their work at home and not come into the project site. But thankfully, it hasn't hindered our drilling because we like to drill primarily in the wintertime when things are colder. We can do some drilling in the summertime as well at Eagle Telbel, but this year it hasn't had a dramatic impact yet. And again, just that we helped in the effort to fight the fires, and I hope it ends soon.
Absolutely. So it's been a bit of a tough year for gold as well. What in particular do you see weighing on precious metals prices right now?
I get what you're saying and why you say that it has been a tough year on gold. But if you were to rewind the clock a few years and say gold is 1950, 1930, 2000, people would say, well, how is that a tough year for gold? I think I get what you're saying. It's been a tough year for gold equities that haven't kept up with the price of gold. Gold has been the best performing commodity over the last 30 years, period. And the disconnect between what the market is giving us and what the gold price is doing, I think, comes down to a lot of uncertainty around the risk on, risk off trade in the stock market itself. That's one big factor. And then as the United States kind of goes forward and the US dollar is viewed differently around the world, I think that's only going to have a positive impact on the price of gold, period. I think there have been some other factors that have pulled some of the wind out of the sail of the gold tape. So for sure, what those are, maybe it's some of the crypto, maybe it's some of the other commodities out there that have done that. But over time, gold will always perform. And I think that if we hit $2,500 gold by the end of this year, I will not be surprised.
Well, that's quite a prediction. We've heard some predictions like that, but that would be something to see. What do you think could be potentially turning this around? Are we waiting for a Fed pivot? Are we waiting for a confirmed recession, which would be good for gold prices, potentially good for gold producers, even if not maybe for equities? But what do you think is going to be the turning point for the industry?
Well, I think when it dawns on people that first of all, the major producing companies are going to have to see a big uptick based on July tends to be really good for gold, actually. And so I think if that happens, it's going to come down to foster a feeling of more, an understanding of the returns possible from the junior mining groups like ourselves. But the big shops, the big producers have to lead the charge. And I think one thing that's going to turn this all around is a pivot, like you said, with the Fed, for one thing. That'll make it have an impact. I think that we'll see what happens with the global kind of wars, the theaters of war, and what's going on there. Seems like Blinken and the Chinese Xi has had an amicable conversation, so I never really thought that was going to go anywhere. A lot of eyes will be on Russia and Ukraine and see how that plays out. I think that's as I can't see a really positive ending there, unfortunately. I don't know how that's going to play out. So all these little factors will have an impact. I think that when this happens, and when this shift happens, and when this thing turns around, it's going to be something we never ever expected. The market always does whatever it takes to fool most of the people all the time. And I think that's what's going to happen here. It'll be a combination of things where people's debts or mortgages come due, they can't fulfill them, and then we'll see it kind of a big correction in the housing market and capital markets. And then people will say, well, where are we going to go next? Gold has always been there for us. The old warm arms that we always can go to make sure that our value is actually stored and will continue to be for the future. So I'm predicting in September, October is where we're going to really hit the uptick there, and we'll head into kind of a nice ending of the year.
All right, so you guys are doing quite well. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit and ask you to speak for juniors in general. We spoke to Rick Rule yesterday.
Did you?
And yes, and he said he believes that we need way fewer juniors. Most juniors shouldn't exist. He says taken together, if juniors were a company, they would lose $1 billion a year in a good year and maybe $5 billion in a bad year, and 5% will only about 5% will ever really perform. Now you're already counted among that 5%, so congratulations. But what do you think about that perspective on the industry?
I think that he's correct, but I think that it's necessary. If you don't have the risk-taking explorers out there doing their jobs, you can never have the majors coming in and finding their production. It's like having the farm league for baseball or biotech labs, R&D, spending the R&D, proving that drugs are efficacious, and then the big farm comes along. Most of those labs also don't make it, but they're a required element to the economy and to the whole industry as a whole. So yes, he's correct. And also I do believe that consolidation is important. And I've been saying for years now that one of our components to building our platform is to finding accretive, smart deals for us in this marketplace. Even when the sharp prices are under pressure, if yours is under pressure, it means others are under pressure. So it doesn't really matter when you pull the trigger on the trade, if it's at the height of the market or the bottom of the market. Just so happens that when things are more depressed, management teams on the other side tend to be more realistic and pragmatic. So I agree. I can't disagree with what Rick says. I know him very well, and he makes a lot of sense. And also, if he turned around and said, okay, well, you pick the ones, Rick, that you would take out of the market, and you find a better system, I'm all ears. But you kind of need this pain in this space in order for the whole industry as a whole to work. I don't know of a better mousetrap to get to the point where you can say all the junior explorers are going to have X percentage of success rate versus some other system. It kind of is what it is. We're doing the R&D for the big pharma, for the big companies, to finally find the next consumer product, which is what our output is, whatever the minerals are we're going after. So you kind of need this mix. And for the ones that are lucky enough to play and support and invest in the right ones, they get the biggest lifts. The other ones, hopefully, they spread their bets around so that some are winners and some are not, and they don't have so they have about more balanced outcomes.
Right, and you need that pool of companies and that pool of talent that's devoted to trying to discover the next major mines.
Yes,
to keep the industry moving forward.
Correct. I mean, if you just deleted everybody, then what would happen?
Then we run out our mines and we run out of all the metals in under 10 years.
Well, the big companies have to do all the R&D, and then they're not that great at it. They don't take the risk. They don't go to find new things. They don't have the time for it. But they need us giving them the idea so they can point to the potential ounces down the road. Similar to what we're doing with Agnico. We have a massive land package with the potential, extremely high potential, to create the next big gold camp in the Abitibi. We're not there yet, but I think over time the potential is really, really there, and they need to have projects like us that are earlier in the pipeline so that they can plan ahead in the future. Point to that as being, they need to replace 2 or 3 million ounces every year, and unless they have the juniors going out there taking the risks and taking these shots, there just won't be enough to keep feeding the mills over time.
All right. Now, and then speaking of investing in the future, Maple Gold is the sponsor of this conference's student program this year. So this is a new program.
Yeah.
You've brought 50 students studying mining, engineering, business, earth sciences. Well, why is this program important to you?
I have 3 children. Mining is very, very important to the world. Most of the time, we joke about the fact that a lot of the younger crowd sometimes organizes protests against mining companies with phones that are built using what mining companies produce. So it's a bit ironic, and there's a lot of not always the connecting of the dots that happens with the use. This group of very smart, talented students are emblematic of what I hope the future will hold for this industry. We have to replace ourselves with young, smart, talented, bright-eyed go-getters in this space. And I do appreciate all of the events that are put on after hours here by other companies. But as far as having a longer-term impact of the future of this industry, which I'm very passionate about, sponsoring students is the best possible program. So we do it with JDS. It's the first ever of its kind, and I hope to repeat this every year. We had the presentations last night. We had 9 groups came up, gave presentations for 5 or 10 minutes. We asked questions, kind of like a Simon Cowell of America's Got Talent. And they were absolutely impressive. And tomorrow there'll be a award ceremony, and we'll pick internships for a couple of the best and brightest of this great group. So I'm very passionate about this, obviously, and I think unless we support these young students to invest in their time and to get into this industry, we're open arms about it. It's going to be really hard to see how this industry continues in a real way.
All right. Now, the last thing I wanted to ask is just some of your key milestones coming up over the next 12 months. Presumably, we'll speak to you again next year.
Yeah.
But give us a little bit of an advance on that.
Sure. As I mentioned briefly a second ago, there's the phase 1 of the deeper drill program that we've just completed. We're going to put out some of the final assays of that in the next few weeks. Then there'll be phase 2 coming up with the partnership with Agnico. And then I think those will be some key milestones in there between now and the end of the year. We'll do some follow-up drilling with Eagle, our 100% owned project. And then keep an eye out for, as my old boss Robert used to say, coming soon to a theater near you is hopefully a fun additional thing that we're doing with our company, and which will hopefully kick off some momentum in the space for that kind of activity.
All right, and do we have maybe you can't tell us exactly what it is, but do we have a time frame on that?
Hopefully this summer. This summer,
okay, so the next couple months.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Matthew.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
I'm Ernest Hoffman for Kitco Mining. Keep it here for more coverage from the Mining Investment Event of the North in Quebec City. And don't forget to subscribe.
Kitco Mining special coverage of the Mining Investment Event of the North is brought to you by EMX Royalty Corp.